but lie of type, sandwiched among the some boats and sea vessels stuck down there, are the rusted Susan 1 and Susan 2. These are not common fishery ware, but sanctions regime-busting trawlers piloted by crews of Polar Korea. Pyongyang's concern in a pair of aging African trawlers may appear odd at first. But fishery is big industry in Mozambique. He's one of the nation's largest profitable industries. Polar Korea wants a piece of how lot needed cash money, and boats are lightweight to go and hide. U.S. officials include length kept how the cash of ventures love the goes direct in Polar Korean lead Kim Jong-un's infamous Nuke Mud Foundation, named as Office Space 39. In deformation sanctions regime compressing the outcast country, Kim as necessary difficult exchange to future evolve his nuke and ballistics rocket programmed. The Trump card authority wants to halt the cash flow. Stricter UN and U.S. sanctions regime, supported blood pressure on China and execution orders are all portion of Washington's plan to compress Polar Korea. The schedule, so distant, doesn't seem to be work. Polar Korea gained almost $200 millionth by export charcoal and some prohibited consumer goods among January and September 2017 Indiana infringement of Union sanctions regime, onto an unedited UN paper. The paper is yet sensitive and has been shipped to the UN Safety Justice Sanctions Regime Board on Polar Korea. Radars and Rangers Polar Korea is strongly confined of earning difficult cash money in its coffers, and long-time sanctions regime do war profits almost unfeasible for the nation. Some hard finance sanctions regimes strongly limit its transactions in some nations. The UN show its inquiry in war links among Mozambique and Polar Korea in a 2017 paper, but collaboration among the two countries is more than significant rather than overmined. How comes in a cost label? Hugh Griffiths, head inspector of the UN Pane of Expert, list a quantity of war activities among the countries, all of that include been prohibited by sanctions regime with 2006. Airborne rocket technology, piloted laptop shallow-to-air rocket technology, war radar gun, air defense system, the restoration of storage tank. He's a length listing, he told. The UN Pane produces 2-year accountable to behalf and embarrassment estimated sanctions regime violators. They include previous informed estimated Polar Korean war links to Mozambique cost at low $6 millionth. A dubious frontline business named Heegyumgang was utilized to run the transactions. The paper state how Polar Koreans include bolstered Mozambique's Soviets-era technique and capabilities, utilized in a length-running and discontinuous gunman dispute in insurgent forces in the northern part of the nation. Officials at Mozambique's Ministry of Defense rejected to be interviewee on chamber and didn't answer to particular queries on war bonds. Griffiths told it was urgent to cut these income streams. Same overseas exchange engendered and the rental income engendered of all of the usual war operation can be utilized to foundation the DPRK, house Polar Korea's forbidden nuke and ballistics rocket programmed, he told. The Polar Korean legation in Southward Africa could not be achieved for commentary. A building on Mount Setong of a rent broker for the currently abandoned building was suspended about external on a latter night, wait to show it to new clients. Down there were several Asians residing and work there. They leftward 3 or 4 persons months back, he told, addition how they leftward since they couldn't provide the lease. No knows wherever they went. A paper of a UN Pane of Expert of September 2017 alleges how Heegyumgang was instrument in provided the war supporting to Mozambique. As Polar Korea's largest trade affiliate, China is frequently singled out by U.S. CEO Donald Trump card for not split bonds. But UN and U.S. investigators are take a lot nearer see at African countries' relation to Polar Korea, studying at low 11 various nations. Lot African release movements had bonds and supporting of the Polar Korean mode up autonomy and via the common Cold Warfare, although the degree of the protection has been surveyed by several. Mozambique is no various. Each day about Maputo's major traffic round, amber and green taxis petticoat a Polar Korean made bronzed image of Samora Machel, Mozambique Space's CEO. One brush points to the heaven, The sum is unmarried to a war waste. The image, opened in 2011, bears just a fleeting similarity to the person. The UN Safety Justice Gone sanctions regime targeting Pyongyang's image-making industry in deceased 2016. Fair a pair of miles off, a sheet-way in the town yet bears the behalf Kim Illinois Sung prospect, following Polar Korea's basis autocrat. I believe we include each cause to trust how our relation in the joint state is large, told Alvaro O da Silva, a CEO at Mozambique's overseas ministry. O da Silva says how the Polar Koreans yet in Mozambique are lawfully betrothed in public and engineering fields, proverb they are not break UN sanctions regime. At the time, we are performing all the sanctions regime how were proclaimed by the Joint Nations versus Polar Korea, he told. He after backtracked, proverb he didn't include comprehensive data on sanctions regime. But the Polar Korean fishermen are yet down there in their boats. In the evenings, they occasionally roam in city to store, unfazed by the geopolitical implications of their remain.